So we start with the opening recitations on page 2. Parvadan Pamje Kembe Bardu Choparaje Patham Jeki Sojebe Manam Kadam Yampe Senche Tamje Devata De Dunya Tandre Nirgulana Me Paya Aparasobe Janjurin Poche Toba Sama Yeki Bardu Longa Yisa Kewala Mashi Bardu Longa Yisa Kewala Sundene Masanta Samgi Bardu Longa Yisa Kewala. Page 7. Songye Chulang Sugi Chonamla Changju Bardu Dani Gyatsu Chi Kagi Jinsu Gipe Sonangi Gola Penchu Samgi Krupara Shu Manang Kadam Nyambe Senchen Damche Ewadan Dewe Ginan Denpa Gyuchi Dungyada Dungyao Ki Gyudan Dewa Gyuchi Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dangmi Dewa Gyuchi Nere Chadan Nidan Dewa Kanyo La Nepa Gyuchi Roje Chanjindele Naroda Mamita Boba Jitingu, Kaditsu Tensawela Pesha, Sagula Magidam Jokyola Sovatetsu, Dagi Jinji, Yukito Mesam, Lingen Kapito Tunyola, Ketsu Petewa, Jichang, Jibin Shaba, Utatu Samgyukyole Me, Jinjilo Shitu Jiche, Gemo Pazanega, Timto Dedu, Tobar Jin. So in our opening prayers, if you look at the opening prayers, they're basically out of the 4 immeasurables. 2 is especially highlighted, which is the first 2, loving kindness and compassion. So even though only 2 are specifically mentioned, all 4 are the necessary basis for generating or giving rise to what we call bodhicitta. Often in Western translations, bodhicitta you will come across, they will translate it into, which I don't like that because it's very limited. Mostly they will translate bodhicitta as like altruistic heart or altruistic mind. Altruism, which means transcending the self, which means focus on others, right? It's only one aspect of bodhicitta. You could say it's the heart aspect. Right? Then there's the head aspect, which is wisdom. If wisdom is missing from bodhicitta, then it's no more bodhicitta. It's something else. Not bad. It's just something else. So the head part, so to say, is what I yesterday called the understanding of how things work. The understanding of how things work is really necessary. And then especially the practice of the 4 immeasurables. Because there are qualities that I think, with or without any understanding of the Buddha's teachings, with or without any instruction from the Buddha that has now come down to us. Those four things, at least those four words, anyone look at it, well, oh yeah, I get them. So those four immeasurables are really universal. However, how these four universal heart qualities function within the context of the path laid out by the Buddha, they are not complete until you also include the wisdom aspect. So knowing that wisdom aspect, knowing how things work, is part of the path that the Buddha set out. This is the path to Buddhahood. This is the path to achieving what they achieve. And so we have these, beautiful, wonderful representations. We don't worship statues, but they are powerful reminders of the path and the result of following such a path. So, in terms of how things work, right? Yesterday, I introduced it's two sides, you could say, of reality: the emptiness aspect and the dependent arising aspect. Now I want to elaborate a little bit more about the dependent arising part. So some of you, maybe this is the first time you've heard of this, at least the phrase dependent arising. Some of you have heard this times. Here, dependent arising is referring to how everything that exists, the essence, the way in which they exist, that belongs to the emptiness side. Right? So yesterday we talked about that. Then with regards to how they appear, yesterday I talked about how Buddha says they don't appear haphazardly. They don't appear kind of random. They don't appear sometimes like this, sometimes like that. They appear, they arise according to a process that if you know and you understand the process, then you can make better choices.
Aquí, la originación interdependiente se refiere a que como todo lo que existe, su esencia, la manera en la que existe, pertenece a la parte de la vacuidad, pero cómo aparece, no aparece así de manera random, de manera común, por allí, por gusto, sino que, o sea, de manera como aleatoria. Sino algunas veces sí o algunas veces no, sino todo aparece de acuerdo a un proceso. Y si conocemos y entendemos ese proceso, nosotros mismos podemos hacer mejores elecciones.
They appear according to, and more importantly, I also said, in the end, even the way they appear, right? The Buddha really wasn't that interested in, say, how a physicist or a chemist, right, is interested in how things appear. Right? Buddha's job isn't really to talk about how things appear, how things come to be, based on what we call the natural laws. But that is part of how things appear. Buddha was more interested in showing us, having us understand how karmic appearances occur, how karmic cause and effect works. And that is what we need to kind of pay attention to. Karmic cause and effect. So here we need to talk a little bit about Buddha's teachings on karma. I talked a little bit about that during our back in North Carolina at my center. We have an annual end of the year gathering that we do. So here's the thing. Even though the word karma is used now in popular culture, everyone is using the word karma. But for the most part, when people use the word karma, they are really talking about this idea of, good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. You behave in a good way, you'll be rewarded with good conditions. You behave in a bad way, then you'll be punished with bad conditions, bad experiences. And by extension, it also assumes, right, there is some kind of natural justice. There's that assumption. And in some way, it is maybe a modern version of the idea of God rewards and punishes accordingly. But many people now not so sure about who this God is, what this God is, so they don't want to talk about God anymore. They just say karma. But basically, it's that same idea, right? You are rewarded or you are punished, right? And then once a year, this God, this karma, turns into Santa Claus. At least for the kids, Last night I was telling them in Catalonia, Europe. No, don't tell them this. Yeah, I was very careful not to say that. In Europe, Catalonia, they have a different tradition. They have a pooping log. A log that poops. Yeah. And the presents are the poop of the log. Really? Yes. And if you have been bad, the log poop like a coal, a charcoal. Oh, really? Yes. You can Google that. You know something about that. What is it called in Spanish? Es un pedazo de madera. Un pedazo de madera que hace caquita. There's good caca and bad caca. From some perspective, you can think, oh, that's kind of deep philosophy. Whether it's good or bad, it's all caca. Good or bad, it all turns into poop, Whatever good stuff we eat, bad stuff we eat, that all just turns into poop. Yeah? A few feet later, it's all just poop. But that's the kind of the popular idea of karma. But that is so crude. That is so crude. That is so round. So crude. Like crude, how do you say it? Round? Not round. Like not offensivo. No, crude in the sense of like it's so rough. This kind of understanding, not fine enough. Yeah, so gross. Yeah, gross. Yeah, so gross. This kind of understanding. Maybe useful to talk to a 4-year-old. And how you will damage the 4-year-old. Yes. Yeah. Entonces, simplistic. Yeah. and misses the point. That's more important. Not just that it's simplistic, but it misses a more important point about Buddha. I said, what is it that we need to understand about karma? In fact, it may even distort what Buddha really is trying to show us about karma. So before we get into good, bad, like, don't like, happiness, suffering, before we go to that level, we need to step one step back. And that is important, good, bad, like, dislike, happiness, suffering, it's important. Otherwise, why are we even here, Why bother to learn about this? But before we get there, here we need to take one step back first. I have to say that because there are some who think, Buddha says, oh, good, bad, like, don't like, it doesn't matter. It's all emptiness. Yeah, if that's really the case, again, why bother with all of this? So anyway, when we step one step back, the Buddha says, what we experience from moment to moment, from day to day, month to month, year to year, what we experience, and maybe we say life, reality, that it's the moment, so some technical terms, okay, bear with me. They are the momentary, meaning moment to moment. They are the momentary embodiment of minds, mind states, states of mind. States of mind are embodied. Right? And this embodiment, meaning they take shape. And the way they take shape is momentary. So there are actually two parts to this. Right? There's the momentary aspect, and there is the embodiment aspect. So depending on any given moment, what quality of your mind is, that quality manifests as your physical reality. So in particular, Yoga Jidinsu emphasized this point. In his teachings, he always say, this is called dependent arising. So this is a more detailed explanation of dependent arising. So he says, what we call reality, what we call life, they are none other than the momentary embodiment of moments. So even when we say mind, in Buddhist understanding, mind is not one thing, It's not like maybe Christians talk about spirit or soul. It's not. We don't have that understanding. Buddha says that every moment of mind is present, followed by the next moment, followed by the next moment. How small are these moments? And he gave some analogies. He says, the time it takes for someone strong enough to snap their finger, right? Like that, the time it takes to do this, 60 moments of these minds have already occurred. That is how small these moments are. Yes.
60 moments of thoughts
have already occurred. The time it takes me to 60 moments of these minds have occurred. So it's actually very subtle. So this part is somewhat clear. So now we can talk about good, bad, like, don't like, happiness, suffering. First of all, Buddha says, karma is intention. The word karma in Pali and Sanskrit, yeah, the ancient languages of Buddhism, literally it means action. So in the Buddha's own time, different groups, different spiritual traditions have different explanation of what constitutes karma. Most of them actually agree that karma is responsible for creating all the situations that we label as like or don't like. Some of these traditions have this. On top of that, they have a god that is also involved. And some of the traditions don't have. And so these are all the Indian spiritual traditions available during the Buddha's time. So Buddha said karma, so action. What is action? He says action is intention. So he doesn't mean, like intention is the only thing. But what he's saying there is, it all begins on the mind level, on the thought level, on the feeling level. Yeah? It starts there. That's because the prevailing belief, yeah, like what other people believed during that time, is karma is more about actions, like physical actions. So the Vedic religion, ancient Hinduism, current day Hinduism has evolved from ancient Hinduism. So one type of ancient Hinduism is like Vedic religion. And some scholars also say later there's another you could call Brahmanic religion, Vedic and Brahmanic. But for us to understand this Buddha's way of talking about karma, in some ways he's clarifying this because the Vedic and the Brahmanic emphasize that karma, the most important things about karma is ritual karma. Ritual karma. Ritual actions. And that is based on their belief that the whole universe was created through ritual action. So to maintain the universe, to keep the universe in a state of balance and harmony and good, human beings now have the responsibility to do the right ritual actions in order to keep everything going and going well. That's what other people emphasize. But that says, yes, karma is what made reality, made this world. But karma is mostly about intention. Karma is not ritual action. Karma is actions that come from intentions. Concretely, like sneezing and yawning, they are not karma. Because there's no intention behind yawning. It's allergies that you're sneezing. But when does sneezing become karma? I think I have COVID. I'm going to go sneeze in a room full of people. That's when it becomes karma, because there's action. There's intention. Yawning, again, not karma. But if you purposely yawn sitting there because the teacher is really boring, and you yawn to hint to the teacher, maybe you should talk about something else. Now it becomes karma. Now, is it good karma or bad karma? Depends. It's good karma when you say, oh, I should hint to the teacher, this is really boring. These people may not practice the Dharma if you continue talking like this. Then it's good karma that you pretend to yawn then it's good karma. But if you're yawning out of like a bad intention, so to say, right? Then it becomes bad karma. So based on this kind of karma, your thoughts, your mind from moment to moment has a certain karmic quality, then it will lead to the fruition, the karmic result of that reality. Some of these will bear fruit immediately. Some will bear fruit 10 days later. Some will bear fruit 10 lifetimes later. There are these differences. So dependent arising, one main part of dependent arising is karmic causality. Yes? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yes, I understand. Yes. So basically the question is, let's say you feel, or at least you think, you have good intentions. And then you try to do something. Then it produces a negative result. So what's all going on there? Again, it's a lot more subtle than that. You think you have good intentions, but is it? It's not such a simple thing. Then another aspect, if let's say now we can decide, let's say we're doing a post-mortem of the situation. Then you say, okay, actually, yes, intention was virtuous. That's actually more details Buddha talked about. What makes it good and what makes it bad is related to the poisons. So when you decide in that moment I'm going to do something, if it is free from the three poisons, which is attachment, aversion, and delusion, is free from the three poisons, then that intention is virtuous. Therefore, it's good. Yes. But between that and doing how many moments of this? Think about that. And what are the quality of minds turning up? Now, accordingly, they all bear fruit. Your good intention, I'm going to go help someone. That will manifest accordingly. But when you go help, your ego comes in, your mind slips into poison, mess up the situation. That is the manifestation of that. So nothing is so clear cut or good and bad on the level that we can see, because we cannot see so fine. Actually, from the Buddha's way of seeing, is very clear. That is very clear. What cause lead to what effect? But we don't have the ability to see so fine. Can you even notice your 60 moments when I snap this? You're like, no, there's only one, but actually maybe only half a moment. But the Buddha can see 60 moments. So this description is just painting a general picture how things work. Yes. Well, obviously you're still moving around. So that's the answer. How deludedly. Correct. So that already shows, how deluded we are. From the Buddha's perspective, right? All of us are like knocking around like drunk, we think, oh, everyone is kind of, oh, everything looks good. From their perspective, we are like a bunch of drunks at New Year's Eve, doing all kinds of crazy things. Uh-huh. Yes. 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 Okay. I understand your question, but first, this is my answer. There's the next part. Yeah. We all look like, we got it all together, you woke up, right? Right? Quite an achievement, You woke up this morning, you brush your teeth, you put on your clothes, you walk over here, you think, but where they look, they're like, oh my gosh. Where the Buddhas are seeing, they're like, so this is the secret to compassion. So that's why they have so much compassion, because they can see we are trying so hard, and yet, despite how hard we're trying, we're just a bunch of drunks. And this is how we can develop compassion for ourselves.
Para nosotros.
We're all just groping around in the dark. Some seem to be doing it better than others. So this understanding, yes, I get what you're asking. This understanding can so paralyze us that we don't even dare to wake up. Or if we wake up, we don't dare to get out of bed. Right? So it can that. It can do that. Yes. Depressed. Yes. That's why, remember, the near enemy of compassion is despair. We talked about this yesterday. But we can choose a different set of actions, which is, despite how terrifying it is, what is the alternative? Stay in bed or get up and do your best. And while doing your best, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. That's where compassion comes. Yes.
I think so.
You're not allowed to ask. Joking.
So in this moment occurring, happening.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yes.
So that's why the Buddha's teachings are emphasizing so much the stability, constructive stability of mind.
Correct. So that's okay. So that's the general what I just said, right? Then the Buddha's path lays out. Buddhas did not suddenly, get the ability to see 60 moments. Why we are doing shamatha meditation? One, calm abiding. One of the reasons for calm abiding is we slow down. We slow it down to breath, one breath. Then one breath, we slow it down to one inhalation. Then one inhalation, we even slow it down to different parts of the inhalation. And so now you're freezing your frames. Like the TV, how TV, right? It's basically blip, 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 blip. So fast, you don't even see, right? You just see a very smooth picture, but it's blip, 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 right? Actually, new technology is not like this. I belong to the old world, where the dinosaurs were still walking. That's my world. So it's like blip, 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 blip. Yeah. So when you do calm abiding meditation, you're slowing down to pay attention. So you can develop a more clear view of what is this moment. So it gives us the ability to not react. So in English, there's a difference between using the word react and respond. Right now, we are just reacting. But when we are able to see more clearly, instead of react, and respond. Reacting is always based on the three poisons. Response can be based on wisdom, loving kindness, passion, joy, divinity. So in fact, that expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. To me, what that expression is, of course, comes from people's experience, right? We have seen so many times, right? For me, what that points out is so-called good intentions can be the basis of ego maintenance. When you're so certain this will save the world. In fact, I would say all the wars that have ever been fought is based on someone thinking, if only the world can be this way, then kingdom of heaven is here. Huh? Along the way, we can kill a few million. Right? So good intentions, kingdom of heaven, like utopia, can be achieved. Once we get rid of certain things, certain people, certain situations, Nobody, as far as I can tell, nobody ever starts a war going, how many people can I kill? How many people can I hurt? It's always based on some idea, whether kingdom of heaven, whether even pure land, Luckily, Buddhists, you can see from history, have committed less of that kind of wrong. Because I think Buddhist cultures have always operated under the control of powerful kings who may or may not like Buddhism, So Buddhists never gained that kind of military power. It protected us from doing very bad things. Whereas other religious traditions, they were more powerful. Sometimes they take over governments and to fulfill their vision of the perfect world. Suffering. More suffering. So back to compassion or immeasurables. So yesterday, the clear opposite of compassion is malicious. Then the evil twin is despair, which is what these days people also refer to as despair. People also refer to like compassion fatigue.
Es lo que
Fatigue, right? So again, in fact, although there's this thing called the four sublime states or the four divine places, the four divine places of the heart, or in fact, if you look at all the scriptures or the sutras, mostly the focus is on metta. There isn't like there's various sutras called metta this, metta that. But there's not that many on like compassion, joy, and equanimity. Yeah. Why? It's because really metta is the basis. Cultivating metta is the basis. So if you remember, right, the definition in our recitation, opening recitation, metta is may you have happiness and the causes of happiness. Mm-hmm. So compassion is one way of loving kindness. Compassion is one way for loving kindness to kind of unfold. Which is when you have that wish, right, for yourself, and all beings. So when we say all beings, you are part of all beings, okay? Don't forget that. Right? You are not like all beings and then alien. Yeah? So when we say we wish happiness for all beings, right? So then, from that basic standpoint, when you see suffering, compassion comes up. And then, with that metta, when you see happiness, that's joy.
Yes.
It plays out, your metta now plays out as joy. So the first three, 2 and 3, are how one plays out. So with metta in the heart, when you see others suffering, and you can also say when you see yourself suffering, then compassion becomes the natural response. Then with metta as your basic heart place, when you see people experiencing happiness, joy is what naturally comes out. So this is also, after the break, we'll start the joy section. There, so look at the near enemy, the evil twin, and the obvious opposite.
So now she has which so our own mind can experience itself about good intentions and bad intentions. How to experience. And then the other question is about
Wait, that is a question? I thought that's a statement.
It's a question.
Oh, what's the question?
If our own mind
can our own mind?
can
Oh yeah, of course. Yes, of course. Otherwise, this is all finished. So Buddha's wisdom teachings shine that darkness. Right now, our own mind is in the dark room. Yes, of course. Then, of course, it cannot see. So the Buddha's giving us, a torch. Second part.
Sometimes terrible things are happening, like accidents to children, and so people are saying, "Why?" So how can we explain or approach to explain to people what's happening?
Oh, very hard to explain. Just respond with compassion. Definitely don't talk to them about, oh, that's negative karma. Okay, we take a break about 20 minutes.
Entonces, para tener
So in this one teaching, it's called the stainless elixir or the stainless nectar of experience, like meditative experience. So it's basically a teaching of the Fivefold Mahamudra. But on the section of bodhicitta, this is rather unique because on the section of bodhicitta, Yoga Rinpoche mostly focus on compassion, which is not usual. Which of course says to us, be flexible, don't be so rigid. Even though generally he says you focus on metta, but in this one text, he gave very detailed instructions on how to cultivate compassion. So here he says, there are 3 stages for generating. So in the Fivefold Mahamudra, the first part is bodhicitta, cultivating bodhicitta. So then he says, in order to cultivate bodhicitta, he says, you first, where bodhicitta is not yet there, you have to bring it up, right? And when it has been brought to appear, then you have to enhance, make it more stable, and then make it stronger and stronger, basically. Then when it comes to bodhicitta, as we say, there are 3 aspects often emphasized. Cultivating loving kindness, metta, cultivating compassion, and then using loving kindness and compassion as the force, you make the vow, the Bodhisattva vow, which next weekend Kinjin Rinpoche will give us those instructions. So that's the three parts for bodhicitta. But in this text, Gyalpa Rinpoche single out compassion. So here, Gyalpa Rinpoche said, if you know how to practice the true core of body, speech, and mind in the Vajrayana style, you can cultivate passion in a much easier way. So he uses this expression, the true core. I'll explain what that is. The true core of body, speech, and mind. Secret mantra. Vajrayana. Yes. True core is literally, it translates to magical wheel. In Sanskrit is yantra. Right? And yantras normally just is referring to these physical exercises, yogic exercises are called yantra. Almost like the yoga class you go to, the postures, downward dog, sun salutation, Yeah.
Sí, como
those different postures. Those are usually what they mean by true core. But here, Gyalpa Rinpoche says there is the true core of the body, there is the true core of speech, and the true core of mind. So first he says, so to cultivate compassion using these three true cores, the true core of the body is as follows. And the true core of the body is to sit in the most optimal way, is to sit in the 7 points of Vairocana, which is to sit cross-legged in full lotus if you can. That is said to be the best because it gives the most stability. Then your body should be upright. Your chest should be open, even like push out a little. But all of this needs to be relaxed. That's the fundamental point. Relaxed. So within the context of being relaxed, you tighten a little bit, right? Tighten the way you sit. You tighten the way you hold your body and the way you open your chest. So 3 now. Then your hands, your arms hanging down both sides, ending with your hands, right palm, left palm, 2 thumbs touching. That's the 4th point. 5th point, your chin tuck in a little. So your neck, is like a swan. Swan is a little bit more elegant than duck. And so that's the 5th point. Then the 6th point, your gaze is soft and lowered. So not closing and not like so soft and down. And so down, it says go down in the direction that your nose is pointing to. Then the 7th point is lips, teeth all touching, and your tongue is placed on the palate. So that's the general actually given in all meditation posture in the Tibetan tradition. This is called the 7 points of Vairocana. So this is the true core of the body, but the general. Then there is specific to cultivating compassion. Here he actually says you make a sad face. So he says your brow furrow. Yeah, and in the different, when he taught about how to cultivate metta, he says it helps if you have a slight smile on your face. So here he says your face should be sad. Then you can now start to think about how sad it is that all beings are suffering. He says until maybe you will cry. That's all part of the true core, the magical wheel of the body. Then the true core of speech now. The true goal of speech, he says, you should recite this following as like a mantra. He even says, use a mala. And what should you recite? This is what you should recite. How sad they are, this one who harms me. Like how sad, how pitiable, this one who harms me. So here he is choosing, yesterday I talked about, there are two objects, right? Basically you can start with. In the cultivating of metta, usually only one object, which is the one that you feel naturally. You can feel, oh, this person is so kind. For compassion cultivation, you can also start with the one who is most kind to you. But here, he is choosing the one that you feel is really right now harming you. So he says you repeat this as a mantra until it merges with your thoughts, and you should repeat this flowing like a river. How sad this one, you who harm. How sad you who harm. How sad you who harm. So this is effective. You clearly have someone that you feel is harming you, has harmed you. So he says you repeat this one mala. And after one mala of 108 times repeating that, the true goal of speech, now you integrate, you do the true goal of mind. So true goal of mind is to consider the following points. In what way is this person who harms me, an object? In what way this person who harms me should be the object of my compassion? It is for the following reasons. This person has been my mother since beginningless time. Then, this mother, because they are overcome by negative karma and afflictive emotions, she has no control over her mind. In other words, they have contracted a disease. So that the symptoms of the sickness is they have no choice but cause harm to others, and especially cause harm to me. So you are actively choosing a different narrative that you normally have about this person. So this is about making choices. Of course, you can choose the narrative of, oh, this person harms me because they're jealous of me, all kinds of stories. You could also follow that narrative. Like we have all kinds of stories. We used to be best friends, and then because of this other person, like all kinds of stories. And they can just be as true. But here, choose a different. Try to look at it from a different perspective. Focus on how this person has no choice. So one point, because they have this sickness, so they have no ability to control. First. Secondly, this is not just anyone. This has been my mother before. And because they are causing harm now to me and to others around them, there is only one direction they're going, which is they are not headed in the direction of happiness. They're going from suffering to more suffering to more suffering until they're going to the hell realms. Okay, remember teachings about karma? Hell realm is not a place that some god or some power designed to punish bad people. Hell realm is the embodiment, right, of the momentary thoughts, feelings of this person. Right? So again, think, how unfortunate, how sad, that this person caught this sickness. So this is not even talking about right or wrong, just or not just, but they're caught in this cycle that all they can experience is suffering. And because they are suffering, they don't know anything else but to give suffering to others. How tragic. Finally, the last point here is for this mother of mine, tormented by suffering, there is no other source of hope apart from me, her only child. I'm the only one who understands the situation, the true situation of this harm causing. So I need to give this person help. So if we summarize the reasoning that we're using here, first, this person has been my mother, meaning has been kind to me at one point. In fact, at one point, this person loved me the way my mother and my father loved. But now, because this person is caught, right? Caught this disease of negative karma and afflictive emotions, they don't know how else to act except to dish out, to emanate suffering. Second point. Third point, and because of this, they will only go from suffering to more suffering to more suffering. Fourth point, I am the only one that can help her. These are the 4 points. And he says, so you fully consider these reasons in detail, then go back to the mantra. How sad this one who's caused harm. Then recite again one mantra 108 times. So he says, by practicing these 2 parts, recalling the reasons, those 4 reasons, and counting the compassion mantra undistractedly in a steady flowing stream, then compassion will begin to arise in you. And he says the compassion that will arise will become so overwhelming, you feel like you have no control over it. He says, you may even feel like your heart, is going to burst. You uncontrollably, you will cry, and you cannot control your body. May even be shaking. So he said, practice this truko of body, speech. So this is the instruction. Then he says, as supporting, to support this, he says from time to time, like not during the formal meditation. Formal meditation, you should just keep to this. Yeah? Then, in between, right? And you can do, you said today, this weekend, on Saturday, at home, I'm going to turn off all my, internet. Turn off. Then no need to turn off the phone. Once you turn off your Wi-Fi, that's the single solution to all your problems. Turn off your Wi-Fi. Then, that whole day, you have sessions that you're cultivating. But in between sessions, he says you can think about the following reasons. He says, think about the Buddhas of past, present, future. How they, unable to bear the suffering of those who caused them harm, they generated bodhicitta through the power of their great compassion. So here it's I think you should pay attention to what he just said here. Because don't think that exercise, right, where you cry uncontrollably and your body shake, it's like, oh, don't think that is the goal. In fact, he's saying no one likes this feeling. So it's not an end unto itself to feel like, to be in that sense, right? Feeling that compassion is very stressful. Yeah. It's very uncomfortable. But so in when you have that burden, right? Now what are you going to do? It says, generate bodhicitta. But for us, when we feel that, whether through the true call or just paying attention to news, when we feel that, usually we go in the direction of, I don't want to know anymore. Shut off. Right? I don't want to know anymore. Turn off. Become insensitive. And that is, you can say that is also one of the evil twins, or now triplets. Then the other evil twin is despair. Just completely overtaken by that feeling, despair. But those two other triplets, recognize them. These are may look like compassion, but they're not. So then this compassion has to go somewhere, which is to generate bodhicitta. Think about how there's all these stories about the past lifetimes of Buddha Shakyamuni, that for the sake of beings, he even gave his head, his hands, his legs, his life, because he cannot bear to see the suffering that beings are experiencing. But in the end, right, by giving your hand, your head, you cannot really solve other people's suffering. In a way, like when we understand how things work, right? There, based on that understanding, we also know if someone insists on suffering, there's very little you can do to help them get out of suffering. But we don't judge them. We don't go, so they deserve it, so what to say? He stubbornly wants to suffer, so go ahead, suffer. It doesn't mean that. To recognize the fact that if someone insists on suffering, even a Buddha may not be able to help this person. But of course, if there's anyone who can help such a person, it's Buddhas. And so here, one fifth instruction, what's called. And so the general teachings of the Buddha is called the Buddha's Ka. The Buddha's Ka. Ka has a connotation of like, it's not just like ordinary words, like words that you and I use. The words that Buddha used are words based on authority, but not like unreasonable authority. No? The authority is based on reality. So Buddha's words carry a lot of weight because it's based on what's true, right? So those are Buddha's Ka. Then within this context, there's another set of instructions that is called the Buddha's fifth instructions, like Dhamma, the Buddha's fifth instruction. So in the context of like training, we say we have to rely on the Buddha's Ka, the Buddha's authoritative statements. But to get to the more subtle, we also need the teacher's fifth instruction. Because we lack the good karma of being alive during Buddha Shakyamuni's time, or when we were alive during Buddha Shakyamuni's time, we didn't even recognize Shakyamuni was a Buddha. And so now, here we are. So we also need to depend on the fifth instruction. So this is just explaining the significance of fifth instruction. But Gilbert Rinpoche one time said, of all the fifth instructions that I had ever received, including the fifth instructions I got from my root guru, Pamodrupa, now there is one fifth instruction that is greatest, and I got that from my mother. I got that from my mother. But you have to understand, he didn't say this lightly. Because for him, Pamodrupa is no different from Buddha Shakyamuni. Not the way that we relate to our gurus, the way we relate to our gurus. When we're in a good mood, when the guru praises us or smile at us, then we say, oh, yeah, you're like a Buddha. Then the guru Forget the smile at Yun. This guy. Ojikden Sungun, Mamadrupa is like Buddha, no different. But even that, he says, there is no more powerful pith instruction than the one I got from my mother. So he said, one time when I was young, a neighbor, this woman, lost her husband.
Una vez,
Her husband died in some accident. So this neighbor was in so much pain. But the pain just kept getting even stronger and stronger. With the passage of time, instead of becoming less, it became stronger and stronger. So one day, Jidin Sundar's mother was talking to the neighbor. Specifically, she said to them, as long as you are not willing to let go of the pain, this situation would never change. Sounds very simple. Words are definitely very simple. So simple even until you think it sounds kind of like, yeah, this is what people say. But Jesus says this is also the truth. Whatever suffering it is that we are experiencing, whatever suffering it is that we carry around with us, we're not willing to let that go, no change. With regards to losing that person is never going to come back again. They are not going to walk through those doors. No matter how sad you are, you have to see that. Doesn't mean once you see that everything is fine. But then change will happen. So again, this statement maybe to you right now is like, but when you gain more experience, in Dharma and blend Dharma into life experiences, maybe one day you will also say, I never heard anything more profound than what Jiten Sundar's mom said to the neighbor. One of our Dharma members in Nashville shared an experience like that when she lost her husband. It's a lot of pain. She knows a lot of Dharma, a lot of pain. But the pain changed when finally one day she accepted. He's not coming back again. He's not going to be sit at this table to drink coffee with me. He's not going to turn up one day at the door. That is just the truth. And she said, from that day onwards, the pain of missing was a different kind. And it doesn't mean that we forget that now. It now becomes a different kind of pain. This is the pain that is positive kind. And this is now pain with understanding. Sometimes when we talk about Buddhas, great masters, it sounds as if they don't cry anymore. It's not true. You look at the biography, they continue to cry, They continue to be affected by loss, but they are affected in a different way. Dharma practice should not be used to turn us into robots, turn us into AI. Sometimes we think, like, oh, enlightened, then you become like AI. Actually, now that we have AI, we can see, they have no emotions. Whatever you say to them, they will give it to you, But no, Buddhas are not AI. Buddhas are not robots. It's not that they don't experience emotions, but they experience emotions in a liberated. So we can experience loss, sadness in a liberated. So the heart and the head can meet in a place that is liberated. And so compassionate. So then next, to cultivate is to cultivate joy. Sometimes this is translated as empathic joy or sympathetic joy. And so what this means is it's not, just joy and the way we normally think, oh, that is joy. Yeah? It's recognizing that someone is experiencing happiness and then becoming joyful because of that. Yeah? So the obvious opposite of joy, what is it? Jealousy, envy. Cannot stand that other people are doing better than you. So immediately coming up with all kinds of stories about how, not really. Might even be using fake compassion, and say, yeah, he looks really happy, but actually he's suffering. I've experienced that before, maybe last week even. Jealousy can even recruit Dharma language. I say, oh, poor Elon Musk, so much suffering. So be careful. But so what is the near enemy, right? Remember, there's also the near enemy, the evil twin, which is the joy that is based on material gain, being like obsessed with or intoxicated by your success or someone's success. So it looks like joy when you see, like you see someone successful, right? And then you are like, wow. But even that, right? There's a difference between joy and the evil twin. It's the evil twin when you are not actually happy for that person. You are happy for all the glamour surrounding that person. In fact, you want that glamour. That's not joy. That's the evil twin of mudita. So, another word for joy, I think, is what we more commonly say. We say, "I'm so happy for you." That's the joy. So, and then of course, with that, "I'm happy for you," you have to be careful. What is it that you're happy? It's like, oh, they have big car, they have great house. That's not mudita. So that's why it has to be based on metta. Mudita is the authentic response to seeing someone happy, seeing someone in a good place, genuine. I'm so happy. In terms of identifying, more specifically, what heart quality are we talking about? Jingden said, I think it's said, it's when you unexpectedly meet an old friend, and that beaming, wow, that is the feeling. That's the mudita. That's joy. Interestingly, for this program and also in the past, so I keep trying. I try to look and see if there's like classical, traditional, like meditation, just like for loving kindness and compassion. I've not found a step-by-step way of cultivating mudita. Because most of the energy is on the first two, and then in particular on metta. So now also we can understand metta is really the basis. Once you really work with metta, then these two other is more naturally arising. So joy is uplifting energy. It's energizing. So in other places, they say joy is especially to be able to tune into joy. And so you should also not think like joy is something that you cannot like encourage, because I said, natural response of metta. But also don't get too rigid and think, oh, I cannot. You can. Right? You can. Right? And you should. Especially, it says, if your practice of compassion gets you too down, too discouraged, you should shift to cultivate joy. And this is then related to Another practice that we often would talk about is rejoicing in others' merit. So turning our minds to the results, to the examples of the Buddhas can bring joy. And remembering, like the simple pilgrim that came, yeah, and prostrate to Joel Rinpoche yesterday. And he said, "Oh, once upon a time, both you and I were same, as confused, as drunk with samsara. But at some point you got ahead because you were diligent. But now you are there, I'm here. So to diligence, I prostrate. I bow down to. The diligence is actually joy. Joy, diligence, joyful effort. One of the 6 parang. But unfortunately, our culture these days, the culture of like knowledge and information creates a situation where we are encouraged to be cynical. So you can also say, this kind of information and knowledge is the near enemy of wisdom. It seems like the more we know, the more cynical we become. So whatever good things that people report, we're like, so don't do that. Make choices. It's about making choices. Yes, because it's confused existence, because we're in samsara, there's no one obvious choice to make. So you make choices. Based on what outcome do you want? You can find all the evidence to back up your choice of this world is a terrible place, and there's nothing worth working for. Yes, you can easily line up all the reasons for that. But is that going to lead to the outcome that you want? No. So it's about making choices. So you can, with full knowledge, you can say, I choose to be simple. I'm choosing not to be sophisticated. The Taoist tradition has very strong this kind. Even in 6th century BC, when the Tao Te Ching was written, they already figured out, sophistication is just nonsense. I'll give you one example of like this notion of, to be cultured, to be sophisticated, to be educated, what a burden it can be. But this example is not, anyway, I'll give you the example. Yeah. I remember when many years ago, I had this one friend. So I went to one university. It's called, I went to University of Virginia for my graduate school. But this other friend, she went to Princeton University, which is fancy, so she went to graduate school there. Then I asked her one time, I was maybe at her house, and her partner, he was teaching at the school that I was teaching. So we were talking about graduate school because we just recently left graduate school. And this friend, she likes to drink wine. So then I said, oh, when you were in Princeton, did you take any wine tasting classes? Because in graduate school, they have a whole bunch of classes you can take for free as part of extra curriculum. I said, so did you take any like wine tasting classes? She said, no. And I thought the answer was a little strong, She said, no. I said, why did you answer this way? She said, I'm very happy with my $4.99 Trader Joe's wine. Why do I want to make my life complicated by taking wine tasting class?
I am so happy with
My $4.99 wine that I buy from this store, $4.99 wine that I buy from this is a very popular shop called Trader Joe's, you know? It's like, why do I want to complicate my life by learning about wine tasting? Huh? It's just, I'm happy with my $4.99 wine, you know? So seemingly you become more cultured, you know? But then when you look at your bank account, you there's so much, you know? Not beyond this, right? Everybody tells you, oh, it's so good, this is so good. Really? Technology promise you that your life will become much better if you subscribe to technological advances. So, have you become happier after they created the smartphone? So, is this smart or not smart? They keep improving the iPhone, but they keep increasing suffering. You have 14, next year 15, 16, 17. We used to buy things only when whatever we have is broken and cannot be fixed. Now we buy things not because something is broken and cannot be fixed, but because cultural sophistication, technological sophistication is telling you not enough, not enough, not enough. So now we have just made suffering sophisticated. Until, you know, nobody thinks much about how about not having suffering in the first place. Good kaka, bad kaka. Until you forget it's kaka. Yeah. Bottom line. Good poo, bad poo, you know. Until you forget, it's all poo. So wisdom is so important. Okay, we take our lunch break. Today a little shorter. We say we will start at 3, but we will start at 2:30. We have a special program. So please try to come back as close to 2:30 as you can. We're flexible. We don't need to be so rigid, but try to come back as close to 2:30 as you can. Okay?
Yeah, correct. I say run.
Yes, during one Immeasurables, a photographer took a photo at the end of one session. Some young monks were like running down the stairs. It was a very nice picture. So then at the so at the first like announcement of holiday, like Immeasurables was very long. So every 10 days, you know, they announce tomorrow is day off. So then the monastery Facebook posted that like tomorrow is day off and the picture of like the young ones like running. But then some people criticized. Then like 4 hours later they deleted. It's also part of the culture, you know.
Yeah. Now you can take a picture.
Yeah, everybody running out. Yes.